Picture this. Over the next couple of years, you're thinking about selling your property and you're asking yourself, what are the little upgrades I can do or big upgrades I can do to my house in order to get the most money for it possible? Well, in this video, I'm gonna break up the 5 things that you should do to your home if you're looking to add value. And these are gonna be not necessarily the 5 largest value adds, however, most of them are. What we're looking for is the biggest bang for your buck. So we're gonna talk about things that aren't necessarily thought about, and I'm gonna talk about a lot of the pitfalls that a lot of sellers make with some of these upgrades that are even on this list, and definitely some that aren't. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Christian Stubbs. I'm a team leader here at Onyx Homes, real estate sales team here in Orange County. We help people move all over the place in Southern California. So let's dive right into this particular video is talking about the 5 ways you can increase value on your property before you sell it. All right, so let's go back to the picture of we're thinking about potentially selling our home over the next couple of years, and we're looking at the house thinking, should I change this? Do I need to do an upgrade here? Or what do I need to do, or what should I do in order to get the most bang for buck out of my house? I'm gonna get to the 5 in a minute here, and I actually have 2 bonuses at the very end, so make sure you stay around for that. Before we get into the actual list of the 5 things, I wanna go through and make a really key point that I see a ton of different sellers making. This is a huge mistake that costs sellers a lot of money. So what we find as real estate agents is most sellers wait till the very last second to get their real estate agent involved in order to sell the home. And usually at this point, it is too late because they have done a lot of these repairs already. And a lot of the times, I'm gonna share with you the biggest pitfalls, is sellers will do upgrades to their property that do not either add any value at all, or they'll spend too much money upgrading something and they're not gonna spend $5,000 and get $20,000 in value. They might spend $5,000 and get $2,000 in value add. So with these 5 major ways you can increase your home's value, the focus here and the goal is to share with you where are the things you can put the least amount of effort and money in and get the biggest return. That's what we're focusing on here in this video. All right, so let's dive in with the first one. As a quick note, you always want to make sure you have a professional give you a real value of your home. So if you'd like to do that, we have a link on our website where you can type in your address. It'll give you an estimated value. We take it a step further and give you a custom market analysis on your property's real value. The automated estimates, as you know from Redfin, Zillow, and the 2,000 other websites, they're really just a guess. So look, having an expert look at this, tailor something in, always makes more sense. All right, here we go. These are the top 5 biggest bang for your buck upgrades on your property. And these are really in no particular order, so don't really pay too much attention about which order these are in. But coming in first is curb appeal. Now, let's take back, we're talking about imagining you're a home seller. Well, let's change hats here, and let's imagine you're a home buyer. And let's pretend that we're looking for a ranch style 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and we're walking up, single family home in a nice neighborhood. So we get out of our car and we're walking up, and all of a sudden there is the immediate look of clutter. There's weeds, there's dead plants, and there's a weird stench going on. Now what's happening to that buyer is they're already thinking, before they've even stepped foot in their house, they've made their first impressions. Maybe it's this homeowner isn't taking care of their house. Maybe there's something wrong with the sewer. It could be any number of things. Maybe there's neighbors doing something that they shouldn't be doing. Whatever it is, but that buyer already has lowered their expectations of that property, and they haven't even gone inside of it yet. So curb appeal is one of those things where you can do very minimal work to the home and make a huge difference, which is why we have this on the list. So imagine if you walk back up to this first house, instead of being cluttered and having things everywhere, dead plants, what we could easily do is you could put in some elbow grease and do this yourself, or you could hire a landscaper, get rid of the dead plants, put in some really cheap little potted flowers, nothing crazy, even something as simple as a water fountain at our front door, figuring out where that smell is coming from. Changing those little things makes a huge difference. So here's really the 3 steps to curb appeal, because this is where some sellers spend so much money when they really don't need to. Step number 1 is just declutter. If you have dead plants, get rid of them. If you have stuff in the front yard at all, get rid of it. As simple as possible is always going to be better. Now, number 2 is to clean everything up. This again could be elbow grease, or this could be a landscaper, totally up to you, but it needs to be done because it makes a huge difference. Remember, this is your first impression, and unfortunately, everybody judges a book by its cover. We're gonna declutter and get rid of all the dead stuff. We're gonna get rid of the stuff that's sitting around. Number 2 is we're gonna clean it up. Maybe that means power washing, maybe that means cleaning out the weeds, all of that stuff. And then number 3 is you're gonna add a little bit of life, a little bit of color. So maybe you go to Home Depot, you spend $50 on plants, you put some flowered stuff, you get maybe some artwork around the front, whatever makes it feel clean, decluttered, decluttered and gives it a little bit of life. You don't want it to be too stale in the front yard because again, this is your first impression. What we want to make sure we're not doing is lowering it. At best case, we're improving that first impression of the buyer. Neutral is totally fine if we can add it with a little pop of color, great, but we do not want to be lowering their expectations just by walking up to the house. All right, so that's number one. I'm gonna give each one of these, for the most part, a rough estimate on what it would cost to do the work on a normal house. Obviously, this could really range from a $400,000 condo to a $4 million home. They'd be wildly different. I'm gonna give you some kind of rough ideas based on averages. So for curb appeal, this is something where you could really spend $0, maybe $2,500 to $5,000 if you're hiring a landscaper and you have a big yard. But let's just use this 3-bedroom, 2-bath example in the $750,000 to $1 million price point. So let's say you're gonna spend somewhere between $0 and $2,500. How much value is this gonna add to the property? Well, in my opinion, leveling up that curb appeal from what we described in the beginning to even just neutral is gonna add at least $5,000 in value to the property. Now, if you went in and did all that elbow grease, that would be worth $5,000. Even if you hired a landscaper to go out and do the work, you'd probably be doubling your money, and it's gonna make your sale a heck of a lot easier. So that's number one, that is curb appeal. All right, let's move on to number two, and this should not be surprising to anybody, but it's paint. Paint inside and out. This is something, again, where we see a lot of homeowners will either completely neglect doing it, or they'll go in and paint with some maybe questionable things. And oftentimes it's the seller putting their personal touch on it, and it's a design that they really like, especially if you see some wild colors, like for example, this wall behind me. While I like it, that doesn't mean a buyer is going to like it. So what you want to do with paint is you want to stay really safe, you want to stay really neutral. What you're trying to do when you're selling a home is you're trying to make it look like a house, not like your house. So anything you can do to neutralize the property is huge. Now, here's another thing with painting as well too. A lot of people don't consider this. When you paint your baseboards and your door trims and your doors, a lot of the times just simply doing that will really make a room pop. Your baseboards, your doors, those have a lot of stories with them, whether it's nicks, cracks, scrapes, whatever it might be. But when you put a fresh coat of paint over those things, it really covers and gives a fresh perspective on it, where a painted baseboard looks brand new, but one that's been nicked a few times by a shoe or by a bag, that might look way worse than something just with some touch-up paint. Now, obviously, when you're painting the walls, you can go in a million different directions, but I always use this example. If you were to paint a room dark black, like if my whole house was this color, it would definitely lower the value. But if my whole house was all white, like most model homes are, it's a blank slate. So whereas something like this, a lot of people are going to have to paint the wall, versus if it's white, most people are gonna be able to live with that. And the people that are gonna wanna paint something like this, if they look at it like a blank slate. So again, with paint, you wanna stay neutral. Now let's talk about the outside. This also kind of goes hand in hand with curb appeal, which is why I put them together, because you could be walking up to that house and the curb appeal is all fixed, but maybe there's chipping, peeling paint on the outside of the house, and the buyer's gonna get a feeling that maybe that seller doesn't take care of the home. When spending a few $1,000s on getting the outside of the home painted can alleviate that. It could also elevate your curb appeal, and anybody that has a freshly painted house, the buyer's gonna feel like the seller's really taking care of that home. We've all seen that old house that hasn't been painted in 100 years, and that really does not do that house justice. So what you wanna make sure you do is on a house that has dark interiors, dark cabinets, or anything like that, that's where it's the most important. Even if you have low natural light, light paint is super important if you don't have a ton of natural light in your home. All right, so let's get into your estimated costs, and this is gonna range dramatically. But if you're just gonna paint the inside of the house, you could probably spend $3,000, $4,000. But you could also include the outside of the house, the ceiling, the door trims, all kinds of things, and you could maybe spend, let's say, between $3,000 and $15,000. So that would be a pretty big investment on getting a house ready, but your added value could be anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000. So this is one of the things where it's gonna pop online, which matters now more than it ever has. And when the buyers get in there, they're gonna look at a very nicely kept, fresh house. Paint is one of the things that helps houses sell faster and get the most money for them. All right, let's move on to number 3, and this one is flooring. This is one of the biggest upgrades that sellers choose not to do because, oh, the buyer can come in and just choose whatever flooring they want because I know my carpet's old, but I don't want to move all my furniture and replace the flooring, and then maybe the buyer won't even like it. And that's one of the biggest fallacies that sellers will tell themselves, when here's the reality, especially if you're in a home that's priced below, let's say $650,000, somewhere in that range, your buyer is likely going to be a first-time home buyer. Now, if that's the case, most first-time home buyers do not have a ton of money sitting aside in order to do upgrades to the home they just bought. They're gonna do the DIY projects if they're gonna do anything, and it's very unlikely that they're gonna go in and spend a lot of money redoing all the flooring in a house. So the idea of the buyer can just do whatever they want, maybe we'll give them a credit, that really doesn't happen very often. And most of the time, buyers can't see past what's already in the home. As far as everything that's on this list, it had to make it because it makes such a difference on value, but this is one of the most painful, I'll say, upgrades to do to a home. Obviously, when you're doing flooring, you have to move everything out, it takes a couple of days, and it's rather expensive, but you'll see when we talk about the cost versus the return that it's one of the ones that's really worth it. Now, I mentioned under $650 or so. I'll also talk about $650 to $2 million. If you want some advice, the luxury vinyl plank flooring or LVP flooring is the gold standard for nowadays. It is super durable. There's a million different combinations for colors and grain and all of that. So there's a lot of different options. That's what I would highly recommend. There are cheaper options. There are certainly more expensive options. This one is probably what 90% of people, maybe 75% of people are putting in their homes. It works really well. It wears great. Buyers love it. So if you're looking to do flooring, my first piece of advice is to anybody that has a house that you think is worth anywhere near $2 million or more is get a professional opinion. You can spend so much money unnecessarily on flooring on a house that might not need it. For example, if you're in that $650,000 house, you do not need to put real hardwood flooring in that property. Luxury vinyl plank flooring is way more than enough, and buyers would be super happy with that. If you're gonna spend 4 times as much money to put hardwood flooring in there, you're not gonna get that extra money out. But on your luxury properties, it really does make a difference. So anything around the 2 million or more, definitely reach out to a local expert. What we actually can do is we can have our local expert and our designer go through the property with you, give you pointers, give you ideas, get a cost breakdown, and figure out what makes the most sense for you. Now, because costs will vary so much on flooring, I'm not gonna cover that. Now, for example, we've been talking about this 3-bed, 2-bath house that's, let's say, $1 million. And if it was to cost $12,000 to do flooring, you're likely to get at least 25, maybe closer to 30, 40, $50,000 in value by replacing the flooring, especially if you're going from carpet to LVP flooring that looks great with everything else. This is a huge, huge, huge value add, but I often see sellers way overspend on what they're doing and do it in areas they might not need to do, like a laundry room, or like we have number 4 on the list is a bathroom. Bathrooms come in at number 4 on this list because this is one of the things where sellers spend so much money on, and it doesn't always bring a huge return. So the first thing I'll mention here is clean and new-ish is way, way, way more important than really high-end. Again, unless you're in a luxury property, yes, the bathrooms will make a huge difference. Now, when I'm saying bathrooms, I'm talking about secondary bathrooms, powder rooms. I am not talking about the master bedroom. What I wanted to make sure we did on this list was not just talking about spending the most money to raise the most value. I want to talk about the least amount of money that we can spend in order to raise the value. So that powder room, that secondary bathroom, or any others that are not the primary, oftentimes we'll see a seller go crazy on the powder room or go crazy on the secondary bathroom and not get their money out when they're going into resale. Oftentimes a refinish, resurface, a new countertop, a new vanity, things like that will make such a big difference without spending a ton of money. So with a bathroom, for example, you can go in and you can renovate a bathroom for somewhere between $5,000 and $8,000, as long as it's a normal size second, third bathroom, and you're gonna get value from $10,000 to $15,000 at least on that property because your bathrooms are redone. Now, again, we're not talking about the primary bathroom or the master suite. We're talking specifically on the other ones. So these do not cost a lot of money, and I would even venture to say if you spent the lower side and just refinished, maybe you have a shower insert with a shower tub or just a shower insert, if you just reglazed and refinished that, maybe put a new vanity in, you could spend $2,000 and probably get $5,000 to $10,000 in additional value that way. Now, if you're doing flooring as well, you're probably gonna look at doing it in the bathroom also. So a lot of these things can also layer on. But the bathroom is one of those things where you could do a really easy upgrade of just reglazing the bathroom and then putting a new vanity in, or even just new countertops. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but bathrooms definitely come in at number 4. And this leads right into number 5, which before I talk about number 5, I wanna make sure that one, we have 2 bonuses here at the end. But the other thing is, if you're curious at all about what your home's worth, I know you can go on Redfin, you can go on Zillow, but we talked in another video about why these are so far off as far as estimates go. I'd recommend reaching out to a local expert. So I'm gonna put a link down below in the description and up on the screen of where you can go in order to get an idea of really what your home is worth. So we do a 2-part approach. We'll give you that instant estimate so you get an idea of what your your home's worth. That's a starting point. What we do then is we take that. If you give us any additional information, we'll go through and put a full custom market analysis together so you can get a really good idea of what your home's worth, especially if you share with us when your upgrades were done, when was the last time you had a renovation, how would you rate your house on a scale from 1 to 10, things like that. That information allows us to go in and get a way better idea of the value range of your house. All right, let's get back into number 5. Number 5 is going to come in a surprise for a lot of people. I would say that this is by far the biggest value add on this list, at least in the sense of the amount you can spend versus the value that comes from it. So this is going to be talking about fixtures and lighting. So think of fixtures and lighting being kitchen cabinets. You've got your hardware, you've got your doorknobs, you have if you have recessed lighting, your light fixtures, all of these different things. This is something that a lot of buyers will come in and look at a gold light fixture in a house that's maybe from the 80s or 90s and automatically think they need to renovate the home, when that's not necessarily true. I've seen it just the same way, where a black farm style popular light fixtures in a house, and automatically a buyer will feel like the home is taken care of, recently updated. It makes a huge difference. I've even seen kitchens that are from the 80s or 90s that had been painted white and put hardware on, and buyers thought it was a brand new kitchen remodel. So this is something where painting the kitchen is going to cost a couple $1,000s and hardware is going to cost a couple $100. But if the buyer goes in and thinks that it's a $50,000 remodel on the kitchen, that's going to add enormous value. Now here's a few tips. If you're going to do hardware, do it everywhere, especially your master and your kitchen need to look about the same if you're going to do that type of work both. My advice here is to keep it consistent through the entire house. Pick a style, stick with it. I would definitely figure out what are the trending things. As always, you can reach out to our local expert. We can have a designer help you through this process. Make your life a lot easier by leaning on the experts for this stuff. But your lighting and your fixtures are going to make a huge difference. We talked about fixtures. Lighting is a surprise for a lot of people. Now, I do mean lighting like chandeliers, like things like that, but I also mean accent lighting like this lamp I have behind me I have 2 different lamps behind me, and those are there for pretty. That's really all they're there for. I don't think they're doing anything for the light in the room, but those types of things make a difference. So do the lights above the bathroom, so do the lights in the kitchen. If you have low voltage lighting, or if you have the old incandescent bulbs, not LED lighting, all of those little things can make a difference. So with lighting and fixtures, you can spend $250, $1,000, depends really on how much stuff you have going on. You could spend a couple $1,000s here, but think of what I mentioned earlier, that buyer's perception walking into a house with a 50-year-old kitchen and seeing new hardware and paint and thinking that it's a brand new kitchen remodel that would cost $30,000 to $50,000. That's the type of value that this can add. I put somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 in value, where you can invest $1,000 and probably get $10,000 out of it. Super high on the list of things that you should do if you're looking to increase value without spending a ton of money. On this list, I would put this and curb appeal at the top 2 to definitely consider. All right, now let's get to the bonuses. I saved these for last, and I specifically did not put these in the list because they're the most expensive. But number 6 is your master or primary suite, as we're calling it nowadays, and number 7 is the kitchen. So if you're gonna spend a lot of money renovating a house, or if you really are just looking for how do I get the most out of this house, your primary suite bathroom and your kitchen are definitely the most important things for the buyer. So those are the biggest projects, those are the biggest out-of-pocket expenses, which is why they didn't make this list. But if you have a renovated kitchen and a renovated bathroom, your home is going to sell for significantly more than the home that everything is upgraded except the kitchen and the bathroom. So they didn't make the list because they are large upgrades. And I won't really go into cost or value add because it really depends on what you do and what kind of house you have, but those are the 2 biggest ones. So if you're doing a full home remodel, you should have a disproportionate amount of your money going to the kitchen and the master or the primary, as opposed to spreading it all evenly throughout the entire house. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions on your property, what you should be fixing if you're thinking about making a move in the next couple of years, I highly recommend going to our website, fill out that home valuation. You'll be able to track your home's value and get an update every single month. We will go in and put a custom market analysis together so you can stay up to date on that home's value. The 3rd step, if you'd like to take that, is having one of our local experts come out to the house and give you a free consultation as far as what should you do to the home. Do not fall into the boat, as so many sellers do, having upgrades done to your house that are not going to add a lot of value. If you're a year or 2 years away from selling, now is a perfect time to have a local expert come out, give you a really good idea of what upgrades you should or should not do, and what your value would be if you did them or if you didn't do them. So if you're interested in doing this, go to our website, reach out to us. You know how to find us. As always, my name is Chris efficient. I hope you found this valuable. If you did, like the video, share it with somebody else, and make sure you're subscribed to both our newsletter at ocmarketupdates.com and to our YouTube channel so you can see these updates right when they come out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.